And we're back. It's another episode of Survival Worldwide on Reality Pop. I'm your host, Chris Swanepoel, and with me, as always, is Riley, my co-host. And we've got a very special guest today, PK, and an even more special guest, Takia. PK, introduce us to Takia.
How you doing, guys? So this is my lovely lady, Takia Goodman, who actually we met each other because she followed me after having a crush on me on my season of Survivor.
Yeah, I've definitely been a super fan, and I watched his season as I've watched many previous seasons, and I definitely thought that he was so interesting, but it was like a love-hate thing because I loved him at first, and when he voted Tevin out, I was like, how can you do that?
So
yes, well,
no,
you go ahead, PK. You go ahead.
No, I apologize to the people and to Takia for getting Tevin out. But yeah, the questions, at least there's a bit of a silver lining.
No, 100%, and we love to see these kinds of things. I don't know if it'll work so well for me. If I tweet out to Anesu, I don't know if it's going to happen. But I had from the beginning of the season, Anesu was my girl. She's the one. She's got a beautiful smile. She's the one that I just think is a great player. She was my winner pick from the beginning of the season. She's playing a great season, but I don't know if that'll work so well. We're quite far apart, and she's over in South Africa. I'm all the way over here in Auckland. So I don't know if we can make that happen, guys. But I'm loving the season. What are you guys, Takia? What are you and PK thinking of the season so far?
Oh, it is so interesting. I believe that everyone's so passionate about the game of Survivor, and everyone's in tune of the game. And I think that that's what makes this season so different. You have your super fans, and you have such a diverse but all passionate audience and crowd as well. So we're so interested. We are hooked. And yeah, every episode has its new every episode has something new and unexpected.
Yeah, there's been a lot of twists, especially I don't think I haven't watched that many episodes of Survivor, but I think I've watched enough to know that there's been a lot of twists, in terms of the tribe
Yeah,
swaps.
the tribe swaps.
There was another one, 2 tribe swaps in a very short space of time. So that's been really, really interesting, seeing new things. And above all, I'm more excited about this duo, man. The Tyson and the Kieran duo. They're looking very, very powerful. I mean, myself and Tevin, we could have done something great, and I'm seeing in them something that we could have done ourselves. So I really hope they go out, they go far, and they become a killer duo. I'm very excited about those two.
No, 100%. And, I want to go into this episode 6, which we just saw play out in Australia and also in South Africa. And very early on, we see a fallout here because we've had Carla voted out, who I thought played a very, very good game up until this point. Very strong female player. Myself and Riley have, week after week, have said that the women of this season seem to be extremely powerful and they're playing a big game. And she was the first woman to be voted out that played that strong, powerful game. But now Warda is kind of coming out of the shadows from behind Carla, and she's got a hit list of people that she wants to go after. Riley, what did you think of this episode, and with Warda sort of getting a little bit more airtime and finding out that Hell of No Fury, like a Warda pissed off?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Warda has been really ebbing and flowing through the game at the moment. She's been on the right side some votes and on the wrong side in other votes, and seeing her closest ally go out this time with Carla gone. And obviously Anesu and Kiran and Tyson on the other tribe, she's on her own. She's a woman on her own island at the moment, making an enemy in Santini. And she really does seem hell-bent on getting Santini out of the game at this point.
Yes, Santini's definitely in hot water for the rest of the episode, with Wada sort of having that target in mind. And we are going to see that she also is going to be angry at Anela Smash later on in the episode, because he was someone that also turned against her. And I really liked seeing a little bit of fire from Wada. She kind of reminded me in this episode a little bit of like the Steffi type of character who played last season. I was a big fan of Steffi. I love someone that is a very aggressive player and goes for it. But I am worried, PK, with Warda being so focused here. What do you think about the fact that she's consistently trying to aim at people in her own OG Vuna tribe, and she's got a real problem with Chappies, and she's saying we need to weaken Chappies, but I don't see the army that Chappies has got around him at the moment. What do you think, Takia and PK, about this strategy from Warda sort of gunning for people that potentially she should try and work with, because she doesn't know the other side. She hasn't played with those players as of yet.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was actually thinking that, because Kieran and Tyson, they're so strong right now, right? They have a very
Mm.
strong duo. They're very strongly aligned. So they pulled Warder in, and then Warder was trying to get Santoni out, and then Tyson and Kieran were able to convince her that actually, we should actually get Dino out and let's pull Santoni in. And Santoni worked very, very well with them. I don't know if they're going to pull her in and try to get Anela out. Because you saw what happened in that tribal where Warder and Anela were going off with each other. But right now, oddly enough, it's seeming like Kian is the one that's on the outside, because Anela and Santoni at the last tribal, there was a tribal where they voted together to get Carla out,
Yes.
and Kian is the only one that seems like she's on the outside. So I don't know what's going to happen right now.
But I also think that Wada has a hit list of people, and I'm interested to see after that, if it is accomplished, what that can do for her strategic game. She gets out Chappies, she gets out Anela, she gets out Santoni. And then moving forward, I wonder what her game plan would be, because now it seems more like a revenge hit list. But I'm wondering where the end goal, how that will further her game per se, because I wonder, because I saw that she does have an alliance with a secret alliance with Anesu. That's more on a secretive note. But I wonder how getting rid of all those people would further her game per se.
Oh man, I wonder, because she seems like a very, very hot personality, So I wonder what would happen if Kieran and Tyson don't really go with what she says, because she has got an eye on Anela, getting Anela out, And Kieran and Tyson might not want to do that. So might she now decide to go on her own path and do her own thing? I wonder.
Yeah, so we've got Mahir here in the chat saying that Kian is getting a purple edit at the moment. And I don't know if you guys know what a purple edit is. For the super fans out there, there was this girl who played in Survivor Nicaragua seasons 21 for Survivor US that had a purple edit because she was from the purple tribe and she never actually got any screen time. And Kian is kind of one of those people that we don't see her get much screen time or explain where she's sitting in the game. So we don't know if she's going to be there long term. My money is on Kian not making it too deep in the game, or if she makes it deep in the game, she's going to be a bit of a goat, someone that potentially can't actually, not a goat like in the sporting terms, greatest of all time, but a goat being dragged to the slaughter with no chance to actually win the season. Would you guys agree that probably that's where we're sitting? I think Riley, as a fan, would you agree with the fact that it's a bit of a purple edit here for Kian? And what do you think for Kian moving forward, especially now losing Dino? Where does she move in that tribe?
Yeah, we did see a secret scene earlier in the season between Dino and Kihan, and they started to obviously have that relationship there. But obviously, Dino being out of the game now, she's really on an island of her own. She doesn't have that connection with any of the former Vuna members on that tribe. And also, Smash has just been on the Zumba tribe, in cahoots with people like Chappies and the like. So she hasn't really had that time to build. And really, when you look back, all the way back to episode 1, when she was really on the firing line with Sean and Jason after they were rummaging through the bags of rice for the Flint, she really hasn't had that time at all to really build any relationships at this point. But I do view Kihan as being someone that she's not coming off as very threatening, and perhaps that's not because we're seeing too much of her actual game plan coming across. So I do wonder if she's someone that'll be dragged deep into the game, but obviously doesn't go very far in terms of playing a winning game per se, but someone that's dragged along because she's almost an assured vote, and someone that they can maybe gather trust in her because she doesn't have anyone else at this point.
Definitely. Now, I want to drag it over to the beginning part of this episode where we see Tyson going back from the tribal council that he was just at. And Tyson is quite annoyed by the fact that he received the majority of the votes. Ultimately, Teresa went home, but he really also feels aggrieved at the fact that he had to play his idol. He had 4 votes on him, and that was the only way he could save himself in the game. And he now says that there's no chance that he's going to be working with the other OG Zumba members that are in that tribe. So this episode turns out to be an absolutely great episode for him because he does end up landing on a completely different tribe with people that he can work with, like his guy Kiran, and also with someone like a Warada in that tribe. And then both of them, they kind of are in a position where they have 4 old Vuna and also 4 new Vuna together, so they can kind of decide which way they want to go, with both of them sort of sitting in the middle, being able to pick and choose. And we're definitely going to go into the decision making and how they got got to the decision of voting Dino out, because I know that PK, you've already said you're really excited about this. I'm excited to talk about it towards the end of the episode as well. But I do want to go in a chronological order here and go into the actual challenge that we see early on here, because it's a reward challenge, and it's one that is quite a difficult challenge for a lot of people, because they've got to go out in a river and swim. And I'm wondering, Takia and PK, how do you guys think you would have fared if you were out there and you had to go swim in that river? Because it looked like there was a lot of people that were struggling.
I don't know. I would have died. What do you think?
I think we're both like quite strong at swimming, but I think there in Survivor, it's a whole different game. You know, you aren't fed, you are mentally challenged as well, and working against the current as well. But that's why I think that Warda perhaps sees Chappies as a threat as well, because he came as the hero, you know, someone that's...
Chappies was looking like freaking Aquaman.
Yeah.
I was like, able to do that. Yeah, Chappies really carried the game, man. He had a really, I think that's the first time this season I saw someone really look like a hero. You know, he really looked like a hero. But is that really going to help him right now? Because it seems like in this new Vuma tribe, he's on the outside. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah. So for me, it's quite interesting, because it's no secret I'm a big Chappies fan. I love the big characters. I like the people that are out there playing a big game. I am really worried for Chappies, and have been worried for Chappies for a while, because it doesn't look like he's getting anybody with him that's going to be his ride or die. Paul was that person for him, but Paul's taken out. Santoni potentially could be that person for him, but Santoni is also someone that is flip-flopping in between alliances, and it just feels like they don't have a solid core of people that are going to sort of go out there and try and defend them. So I've always said that I think Chappies is making the merge, but I think as soon as he gets to the merge, he becomes the first and most biggest target in the game. So he has to either win out with a lot of immunities, which I think he's capable of winning a few, or he's got to find a way to go to Immunity Island and potentially get some advantages or twists that can keep him in the game, because it's going to be interesting to see how Immunity Island plays out when we actually get to the merge, because at the moment the opposing tribe who wins the challenge can send the other one person in the other tribe to Immunity Island. Is that going to be a reward at the merge? What is that going to look like? Who's going to determine who is that person that's going to go to Immunity Island? It's a bit of an unknown for us at this point. But I did want to touch on one thing here, because you guys sort of pointed out that Chappies there's a massive target. I think for me personally, as someone that's watched the game it's exactly the same thing for me. I thought the same thing. I said, it's great what he did, but now everybody's seen how much of a competitor he is. Exactly. But I think it's very difficult if you're a good swimmer and you're out there and you're seeing people drown and they're needing help, and this is like a life or death situation. I think it's pretty scummy of you to put your game above someone's life. And I was a little bit afraid, because we didn't see any of the, I'm sure production had swimmers out there that would have come in and helped them, or something like that would have been in place. But I'm a little bit worried, what would have happened if Chappies didn't jump in there? And maybe PK, as someone that has played this game before and have been at the water challenges and things like that, you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys know Shannon Gates.
Yes, we do, yeah.
Yeah, Shannon Gates actually tweeted this picture where they showed in the cast, you know, the cast list, the credits when the show ends, there was a list of lifeguards, and someone actually photoshopped a picture of Chappies' name. So I think they were really for, any kind of emergency. They were lifeguards. They always are, because Survivor is a game that you can go out there, you never know what's going to happen. There's all these people on standby ready for any kind of an emergency. So I think what happened was Nico probably signals to them that, listen, it seems like Chappies has got this under control. Even though people were there who were ready to save anybody in case they needed to. But then,
just places such a huge target on Chappies' back. What he did was so heroic. But now, not only did he save Anelli, he also saved Santoni. It's this huge physical threat, even in water. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe he could have let the team interject as well. Yeah.
But his team they were falling apart. I just felt for this guy, because he was there with a bunch of guys that struggled, like Sean, who's the other person in that tribe who for me also is getting a purple edit to a certain degree. But Sean was, he looks physically like he's in a really good shape. He goes and does his own piece. And it's funny because as people are drowning, I see Sean sitting on the side there, just looking off into the side where he's not even focusing on people drowning in the water, where Chappie's immediately is alert. He jumps in and goes and helps. So it shows that he's more of a team player in this case. But the one positive thing that I will say that came out of this for me is Riley. We get a lot of his tribe responding in a very positive way about this afterwards. You get Warda, who's an enemy of him, saying that it was quite heroic. She's got issues with him, but she respects him putting himself out there like that, the way that he did. And you get Amy talking about how positive that is. And I'm wondering, you know, are we seeing this for a reason? Can he buy a little bit of good faith for a while here, Riley? Because people have been saying that he's been running the show and he's this bad guy for some other reason. We're getting this in between the edits, but the edit is showing us a lot of good, and it feels like he's being protected a little bit. If he's done some things bad on the show, we haven't seen it at this point. We're only seeing the heroic bits up until this point, and we're only seeing whenever he does something good.
Yeah, he's getting a big hero at this stage. And it was even nice to see that Marisha and Dino on the other tribe recognizing that Chappie's put in such an enormous effort to help to save his other members of the tribe and really lift them and try and keep them in the game there. But it was amazing to see just the reception he got back at camp. I think, you know, what he did in the challenge, yes, it puts a target on his back and it views him as a little bit of a threat. But I mean, what he did was he completely lifted his tribe, going back into the water 3 times. I mean, I don't know if any of those other castaways could have done that. I mean, that looked nearly impossible, that challenge. I cannot believe, as you just put up on the screen there, Chris, that comment from Mihir, it really was more of an immunity challenge than a reward challenge. And it was brutal sitting out there for, you know, an hour and a half. PK, I can only imagine what it was like in the Philippines, but looking at all that rain coming down in the Wild Coast, everyone was freezing cold, swimming through those currents. It just looked absolutely insane.
No, exactly. And you know, it's funny how as viewers we see a fraction of what really happens out there, you know. So for them it could have been, you know, they could have been out there for 2 hours, they could have been out there for 3 hours, but then we seeing 5 minutes of that, you know. So it's really, what we're seeing is really a fraction of how intense it really is out there. And the nerves as well, and you are hungry. There's just so many factors that are going up against you, you know. For Chappies to do what he did, I congratulate him, and I hope it's going to work in his favor.
So we've got Anella here, Smash, in the comments, and he is saying that he's very thankful for Chappie's massive effort in the reward challenge. And obviously Anella is one of the people that, you know, as he was lying in the end zone when he got through that challenge and he was talking to Dino, he actually said to Dino that, you know, he thought he was going to die. So it was a real life or death situation. So from that aspect, I also, you know, I have to sort of think to myself, like, what would I do in that situation? And I think if you see a fellow person struggling, you're not thinking about the game. And that's what I saw from Chappies. He was very aware, immediately responded, probably before anybody from production could respond. He was in the water already, and Nico kind of let it play out. And I also have to give credit to Nico for allowing that to happen and not to stop the challenge in any way, because I could see how some hosts may have said, no, you're helping your person untie the puzzle pieces and taking it to the side. But Nico, in this case, he kind of let it play out. And we're going to see Nico do this a bit in this episode, because he also is going to allow at the end of this, and I thought this was another great moment. We could talk about the fact that the puzzle was really difficult, and, you know, there was 5 letters on 8 pieces that they had to put together to get the pick me up, because you might think as a TV viewer, simple word, pick me up, but there's 5 different letters, different combinations that will have to be put together to get it. So it took them over an hour. But what really stood out for me here, PK, at the end of it, is that you've got 2 tribes that have been battling each other episode after episode. But at the end of it, you see that Vuna is saying that, listen, we've all had a tough time, and we would like to know if we can give some of our reward to them to help them out as an olive branch. And I thought that was beautiful to see, because at the end of the day, you're out there, it is dog-eat-dog kind of world, but you see a little bit of humanity in this episode between the 2 tribes.
Boo.
Not your style.
Not at all. Guys, if you can get an edge over your competitors, take it. You know, that's how I see it. You know, if you guys can get, you know, nourishment, something that'll give you, you know, a little bit of more energy, the upper hand, you know, take it. I didn't get that. And it seems like this season they're living soft. They got these KOA jackets, they always eating. And now at a point where they could share a reward, Nico's like, yeah, sure, I'm going to allow that. You guys can share rewards. You can all carry on eating. I was like, no, man. And the fact that Dino's the one that spoke up, I was like,
So I will say I had my exit interview with Dino, and that's already happened. That will come out on Sunday morning your time. You'll have Dino's exit interview available on Reality Pop TV as well. So go and look out for it. And he did say that there was a bit of strategy in his mind for having the machete go over to the other tribe, because in his mind, he knew that a swap was most likely going to happen because he's a super fan. So he was making the calculations and he was thinking to himself, what if I end up on the other tribe? I would much rather have the machete on that side than be without a machete on the other tribe. So he was trying to think at that level about it as well. But I do agree with you to a certain degree, I guess, that them sharing the food. But I will say there's only one tribe that have had it easy in regards to the food situation because they kept winning. Anella's tribe, and he can attest to this, they've been losing a lot of challenges up until this point. They haven't actually won any of these rewards. So I'm sure it would have been a massive thing for them. But this little bit of momentum potentially could go the other way. And I think it has to do with Sean in that previous tribal council really having a go at his all tribe members there, Riley. And Sean said to them that he would not want to work with them moving forward. So do you think, Riley, that they were trying to get some good favor back with the likes of Sean and Anella? Because the original Zumba can't do this on their own when they get to the merge. They need Anella, Amy, and potentially whoever is left on that side to work with them longer in the game.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of that in the beginning of the episode as well. We saw Santini really bad-mouthing Nicole and how her attitude was toward the other tribe, and talking about how much of an impact it is having no machete and how poorly they're doing at that point. And it was interesting the choice that Vuna made to send their representative to the Zumba camp. They chose Marisha. And I think Dino said he put his hand up, but Anessa was very wary not to let him go over because she felt as though he might, try and curry favor with them and create these sort of alliances that will give him an advantage in the game. But it really did seem as though, at this point, Sean, especially in that last tribal council, was really, really villainizing his old Zumba members and saying, I don't want to work with you at all in the game. And I do wonder whether that's actually going to hurt his prospects now that we've got this tribe swap as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's touch on Anesu a little bit, Takia and PK. What have your thoughts been on her? You guys know I'm high on her. I think she's been playing a pretty good game so far. I like to think of, whenever I see a Survivor season, if you get the Men in Black flashlight and you had to wipe everybody's memory and put them out on the island again, how many times would a certain player win the season? And Anesu, for me, probably with a few other people in the game, like a Kiran and a Ranir, are probably some of the players that I think would win the season the most times. What have you guys thought about her play so far?
Sure, Ines has been a dark horse, and I love that about her. I think everyone gravitates towards her. I think also just being a viewer, you gravitate towards her aura. There's just something about her that we can't place. We don't know what it is, but we gravitate towards her. She's very big on energy, and I think that could be really great for her strategic play because I think that she's able to gauge energy very, very well. And I think that she's playing the game, but not too strong, which is something that's also so, so important. I definitely love the way that she's playing. I think she's a dark horse because physically she's not a huge physical threat. But I also think, she's, for me, the dark horse of the season and someone that we definitely think can go super, super far.
Yeah, I think Anesu really understands the game very well, and she's pacing herself. She's not starting off too strong. She's not being too loud. She's not being a target. She's not putting any target on her back. Like Takia said, her energy is very, very good. She understands people. Her social game is very good. I'm interested to see how far she goes, and I'm interested to see how other people perceive her. And right now, with her new Vuma tribe, I wonder if she's going to be able to work with the other people. Will she be in the majority? Because there are people that are coming in from original Zumba members, and they are the majority right now. Are they going to be able to pull her in, and will that benefit her game? I'm really interested.
She also has that tribal council pass that no one knows about.
Oh yeah, she's got that advantage.
And she hasn't been loud about it. She's been very strategic, and as you said, I like what you said when you said that she's pacing herself. She found that tribal council pass, but she's not she's just very composed and she's strategic
Yeah.
about her play, you know?
Thank you.
I'm loving it. Great observation, and I love the fact that we finally have a player that can keep their mouth shut. Similar to Santoni to a certain degree, but she then ultimately tells them about the idol before she actually plays it. But she kept that a secret for a long time as well, and we'll definitely touch on that. But Inesu, great on her for keeping this a secret. I also think that if Chappies goes into this next one, like let's play the hypotheticals, I reckon there's one more evicted person left before we go to a merge, because at 12, if you're going to have 3 people in the finale, you're going to have 9 people on the jury, so they're probably 1 vote away. So if you look at it this way, if Chappies and Inesu, who are the only 2 original Vuna members in the next round, play their advantages, then a Zamba member will have to go home, because Chappies can swap tribes if they lose to the other tribe, which I think he would do because he's not a dumb player. Like, yes, he's out there and he does a lot of things, but I think he'll know he's on the outs in that tribe. And if Vanessa decides that she walks away from that tribal council, there's only Zamba members left, so they'll have to eat one of their own going into the merge, which would be the ultimate case for us as viewers. Like, I'd love to see that. That would be a really cool play. Yeah, so basically we go from here and they go back to the tribe, and there's a lot of, obviously Amy observing that he was a champion today and saving everybody. She says that Chappies deserves a medal. Santoni further bonds there with Chappies and says that, he saved a life, and you can just see that bond between Chappies and Santoni. It's very real. I don't know where they're going to end up. They're both 2 very big characters, but I am hoping that we see more of Santoni and Chappies. I'm hoping that they find a way to go back to Tyson and Kiran, and Inesu, I'm hoping, is the glue that does it, because Inesu is seen throughout the season as someone that can work with Chappies, and she's had those conversations with Chappies. I'm worried for Warada, though, because I do feel like she's leading by her emotions at this time, and she doesn't want to work with Chappies. But I think that Warada really needs to work with Chappies moving forward for them to have any kind of chance when they get to the merge, because Zamba looks really tight. They don't look like they're going to turn on each other going into this specific merge. The immunity challenge is a great one, because at this point, Riley, we see a swap. Who were you sort of the most worried about when the swap happened, and who do you think at the moment is in the worst spots moving forward? Obviously, we know Dino ultimately goes home. Who else do you think currently with this swap didn't land in a good spot?
Yeah, well, I think the big 2 that you mentioned there before, Inesu and Chappies, obviously being in the minority on the new Vuna tribe, against mostly Zamba members. Inesu hasn't had that chance to test her loyalties with people like Marisha and Renier, because she was on Immunity Island last episode, so didn't get to vote. But as you mentioned, though, they both have advantages which they can play. So it will be interesting to see how that shakes out. And do think next episode, if Vuna do lose the challenge, will be really, really interesting to see how that plays out. But on the Zamba tribe, though, I think someone like Santoni and Wada, both of them have played very revenge-based games at this point. They're not really sticking to one alliance. So I do worry for those 2 playing a very a game from the heart, really, and creating all these enemies. I do worry that they both haven't really made too many alliances with their former tribe members. So I think those 2 as well, being on the outs, I'm worried for them as well.
Now, this immunity challenge is quite an interesting one for a few different reasons. Firstly, Chappies continues to dominate and run circles around the rest of the men, scores the first basket very easily. Anela tries to take him out in the second round, but he finds a way to get out and help Renier get loose and actually go get scored another point there. And then Marisha, as well, as the other person that physically, she's just above all of the other women. She's probably above half of the men. We've said it a few times in this. Like Dino said in the exit interview, Marisha would have loved to go 1-on-1 against Chappies in that challenge where he had to help her, and she would have backed herself to give him a go. And I back her to actually do pretty well in that case as well. But the one thing that really stood out for me here, PK, was we had Anela and Renier in the middle of the challenge taking an opportunity to talk to each other and find out, Renier found out, Anela, are you in a good place? Do you need help? Anela said, I want to be sent to Immunity Island if we lose, because he knows that he's in the bottom. He's not in a good spot there. What do you think? Because you've said a lot, and we're definitely going to touch on Tyson and Kiran as we get into the later stage of the episode. What do you think of Renier and Anela, and specifically how Renier is playing this game? Because I think he's a dark horse that he's been in front of us for a long time. He's very smart, but he's playing it down. Like, he's not letting people know how big of a fan he is or how smart he is about the game. What do you think of that dynamic and how Renier is sort of balancing the power between the 2 tribes at the moment?
Yeah, I definitely think Renier is one of those players. It's kind of like Inesu, he's also pacing himself very well. He's not putting a massive target on his back. You know, he's having the right conversations with the right people at the right time. As you guys know, Survivor is also a game of luck. So he's making sure that, you know, luck is on his side as well. And he understands the game. And I don't know. I wonder what's going to happen, because it seems like right now in the new Vuma tribe, he should be in the majority as well, in the you know, majority alliance with Marisha and Nicole, right? And yeah, man, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen with New York. But I do believe he's going to make it the top 3.
And everyone seems to want to gravitate towards him, and they trust him. Weirdly enough, I as a viewer, I enjoy watching him. Definitely, he's a super fan. He's not playing too hard, and I believe that seeing previous super fans, that's the mistake that we've been seeing. You know, they know the game a bit too well, and they're playing too hard, and people are trusting him, which I think that's definitely a great currency that he can have. I mean, Tyson even told him about his idol, and people want Renier's trust, which I think that he can use as a great currency to move forward. You know, he's got a lot of information from different sources as well that he's keeping to himself, similar to Anesu, playing a very composed, strategic, and tactical game. So, yeah, I think he's also going to go very far if he continues to compose himself.
And I think that's his greatest asset, the fact that people naturally just gravitate towards him. You know, he literally doesn't have to work very hard because people naturally just come to him. He could be sitting on the beach and people are going to come to him with this plethora of information. And he's always like, yeah, here it is again. People are coming to me, giving me information without me asking for it. And that's going to go a long way for him.
Riley, does that sound very familiar to you? Because I got such vibes, and I know it's another South African Survivor player, and whenever you mention him, you know, he's one of the best to have ever done it. But he reminds me of another Survivor South African player that's probably the best to play ever in South Africa, because that person got all of these people coming to them with all the information at all times as well, right?
Yeah, well, when Takir mentioned it before, he was a Survivor superfan going into the game, and he recognised that people in the past, like a Jark, they really overplayed their hand. And they've got, you know, a lot of fire on them. Whereas Renier is playing a very under-the-radar game. And I think I know who you're referring to, Chris, being Rob Bentele. I mean, Renier really has all the hallmarks. And I was really scared for him at the beginning of the season. I thought he would, you know, flame out at the beginning, play way too hard. But what he's done, I mean, he's created so many alliances. We haven't really seen anyone speak against him other than Teresa at this point. He seems to be in very well with everyone on his tribe. And also is a strong player in challenges. I mean, we saw how strong he was in that wrestling challenge in this last episode, and also in some other challenges throughout the season. He's a strong physical threat. He's playing a great social game, and he's dictated all the votes, but he's not being the overarching sort of ruler on those votes. He's sort of sitting behind others and letting others take the heat for all these votes. So he's in a really good position. And the fact that last episode, both Teresa and Tyson were really trusting of him, and, you know, he really seemed to be in everyone's good graces, it really shows a lot of promise. And I don't know, PK, whether it's a final 3 chance, because I think people might recognise that in the end. But I think he does have a lot of upside in this season. He's playing a great game. He hasn't really played any faults at all this season.
So I've been very reluctant to give Renier like too much kudos too early. I was similar to you, Riley. I was scared for him. I didn't think he was going to potentially get that far. I thought people would look at him as another Jark Burger, and that would be too much of a threat coming into the season. But I'm very slowly but surely, I'm starting to think that he's one of, like, I still think there's about 5 players in my mind who I wouldn't count out of potentially winning this season. And he very much forms part of those 5 people that I think could still win it. And I feel like if his side, the Zumba side, ultimately takes over, which it looks like they could at this point in the game with the numbers they've got, I think he goes all the way. Because in this episode, you know, firstly, this is the first time he flexes his muscle, you know, and he goes into the conversation after the immunity challenge, and I heard Inesu's voice say, let's put Warda there because they're probably going to go against Warda. Completely got shot to the side. He did not give her any time, and he still chose to save his man, Anella, who he knows if you've got someone in Survivor that you can trust, you've got that second vote, and him and Anella had that relationship prior to the first time that they swapped. You try and keep them safe in the game. So I think that he's going to keep Anella safe in that side, no matter what. Even if they lose the next one, I would put money on it. Renier takes Anella back to Immunity Island to keep him safe until the merge, because that's his guy. It's one of his guys. He wants to work with Amy. He wants to work with Anella. Anela, and he wants to work with Sean, surprisingly, we heard in this episode as well. Sean's someone we haven't seen a lot of. I'm starting to think if Sean gets to the end, he potentially is another person who could be a GOAT who doesn't get any votes because he's turned people off. Maybe he was a little bit too abrasive, like we've seen in certain scenarios. Not saying that he is an abrasive person outside of the game. Obviously, he's running low on food. There's a lot of people that's working on his nerves. Survivor very specifically casts people out there that you're going to clash on with your personalities and things like that. And it's not always the nicest thing when you don't have food. So I'm not saying that he's like that in real life, but in the game, he might be perceived that way and he might not get the votes if he actually gets to the end of the game. But what really impresses me here, Takia and PK, is that we see Rhaenyra when he goes back to his tribe make those connections again with Amy, and it looks like he's going to have that undercover alliance. Amy is another person that I've come on this podcast and I've given her, I think, more credit than most podcasts. I think she's playing a very high level, low key game. And I think that those two together could be one of those alliances that go, if the Kiran and the Tyson is the other side and maybe an Anesu, that could go very far. If the cookie crumbles the way that Zumba sort of, old Zumba wins out, I think that we're looking at a need, Amy, maybe an Anela, Sean, maybe somewhere in there. I don't know how Marisha and Nicole's going to do. I think they're along for the ride. I don't know if they'll get all the way, but I think that those two are the center of those alliances. What do you guys think of those dynamics and potentially how Amy is sort of part of this as well? And what's your opinions about Amy and how she's played at this point?
I'm not too sure about Amy's level of being trustworthy. After we saw that, with regards to the challenge at the Immunity Island, how she unnecessarily had a white life, you can say. So I'm not necessarily sure if my trust is 100% on her. I wonder how the other team members feel. I'm not too sure about Amy's game. I'm hot and cold sometimes. I think she threw me off with that white lie a bit. It was completely unnecessary because the tribe was going to be raided in any case. But yeah, her game for me is hot and cold. It's dependent on the episode, really.
Yeah, I'm not really convinced by how far Amy's going to go at this particular point in time. But I do think it's going to be in Rhaenyra's best interest to tag Sean along to the end. I think we've seen it played out a few times in the previous seasons. Like if you see Rob and Jarrell, I think this could be something that happens like that. And I don't know who else, because Marisha, she's a challenge beast, man. She's probably the strongest person in this cast right now. So I think it'll be Rhaenyra's best interest to take Sean and try carry him to the end, because Sean is also being oddly quiet now, as opposed to the first episode where he was just putting a massive target on his back. He was just being very loud, and now he's been quiet. He's been quiet. He's not very likable, unfortunately, as you said. Could be because he's hungry, he's not having enough food or whatever. But I think he would be the best person for Rhaenyra to carry to the end.
Yeah, so we see Anela go to Immunity Island here, Riley, and he gets an opportunity to play. Obviously, he's going to stay and play because he wants to keep that immunity. He knows he's at risk if he goes back to his tribe. And this challenge, to me, looked like probably one of the most difficult ones, if not probably the most difficult one that we have had so far in Immunity Island, because, like you said, he's a basketball player. I don't know how transferable those skills are when you have to do the underarm throw to try and get it. It's more if you're good at bowls, you might be good at doing that type of challenge. But, he ends up having to stand what looks like 8-9 meters, maybe 10 meters away from the thing that he needed to throw those sandbags in. Did you think, Riley, when you saw how difficult that challenge was going to be, that he would pull it off?
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical, and he certainly came in very confident that he could, easily beat it. Saying he was a basketball player and he'd, win without any problems, but it did look a little bit difficult for him. He sunk 3 of the 5 though, which was pretty impressive, and it did look like he sort of got in the habit of letting it slide up the top and then drop into the hole there, as opposed to, trying and hit it straight away. But yeah, really unfortunate for him to lose his vote at the next tribal council. But I think, as we determined, there's not really much you can lose from staying and playing, because if you go back to camp, you're still on the line, and you have the opportunity of being voted out. Whereas if you stay and play, you're safe at that next tribal council no matter what. And either you get an advantage or you lose your vote at the next tribal council. And I think if he's in the majority alliance, he can certainly say, he may have lost his vote, but at least he was trying to work in his alliance's favor, so to speak, and try and get an advantage for them. So there's always that upside with staying and playing, I think.
I'm really afraid for Anela, PK, when it comes to the merge. Let's say he gets sent again to Immunity Island the next time because his tribe loses and Rhaenyra wants to keep him safe. he's now lost his vote. He's not going to tell anyone unless it's someone he can really trust, which is the right move. But Zamba could go into the merge with a vote down, because if he's saving the next specific tribal council, he's only got a no vote the next time he actually goes to tribal council. So if it's a scenario of them going 6-6 into the merge, potentially he's put his tribe at a disadvantage. And I think that that's something that could come back to bite them. What have you thought about, I guess, Immunity Island as a whole, having this twist with potentially, if you lose, there's a risk of losing a vote? Do you like seeing this types of dynamics being put into the game? And sort of how do you think this compares to the type of season that you played, for instance?
Yeah, our season didn't have anything similar to this, so it's really interesting to watch what they're doing with this current season. And with Anela, I'm not even sure that he's going to survive. Should the current Zamba tribe go to tribal, I don't think he's going to survive that, right? I don't know. I hope he does, but I think once he does get into merge, he's already seen as a physical threat. So some of his tribe mates, like the original Zamba tribe mates, I don't know if they'll want to turn on him, because he's seen as someone who's very, like I said, like a challenge threat. Yeah, I don't know, man.
He's a nice guy, though. Like, I look at him and I think to myself, that's another reason you'd want to target him. But I can see why Rhaenyra and Nella wants to work together, because to me, they both seem to have a very laid-back, calming personality. If you're on a show like Survivor, you're going to look for someone that wants to play the game similar to yourself. That's why you played with Devin in your season, because he was a strategic person who wanted to turn on other people. And, you kind of gravitate, I would assume, to people that are like-minded to you and the way that they sort of see the game. And I think that they've got that little bit of a commonality. I don't know how much the girls want to protect him going into the merge, but I do think it is in Zamba's best interest to stick together as soon as that happens, because we've already seen that Tyson and Kiran is very tight. We know that Warda and Nesu is very tight, and I think that those four together could be a very strong alliance. And we've seen this in Survivor around the world, that sometimes even a minority alliance of, say, like 4 people, if they're extremely tight and they will never turn on each other, they can actually beat the majority alliance and go to the end and be the final 4. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I did want to, before we go into the next phase here, I guess, I wanted to talk about the early days on the Vuna tribe, because Chappies is very excited. He's back in Vuna, he's back in Orange, and he feels like this is the first time he can be himself. He runs around like a crazy person, shouts around, gets a lot of people to laugh at him, be the character that he is, and then goes for a bit of a skinny dip down at the beach. And I do think that this is the part of Chappies that can be disarming. I feel like there's a method to the madness at the moment in what he's doing, and he's trying to get people to lower their guard with him. I do think it's going to be tough for him going into the merge, but I'm loving seeing it. What have you guys thought about Chappies just as a character on this show? And have we ever had anyone like this on Survivor South Africa? Because to me, it feels like this is probably the biggest, loudest character we've ever had out on the show.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't think we've had anyone like Chappies. I think Chappies he's quite unique. Things aren't looking very, very well for him in his current tribe, especially going to merge. I don't know how that's going to play out, but he's definitely a unique guy, and I'd love to see him go far. And him and Santoni, in the game of Survivor, you will have talks with people, you'll come up with alliances, but then there are things that are deeper. It seems like there's a deeply rooted connection between him and Santoni, and I think they could work pretty well together should they go over to the next level.
Chappies actually reminds me a bit of a Xavier, like in the previous seasons. Maybe not personality-wise, but someone where you watch them and you naturally gravitated towards them. They're also a huge physical threat. But unlike Xavier, Xavier had a lot of people that liked him as well. And I think perhaps maybe it will start a bit slower with Chappies. But Chappies is definitely a likable physical threat. And I think him having that little skinny dipping episode showed that he has a fun side to him. And maybe perhaps it was also a bit of a vulnerability side to him, that, hey guys, I am here, I'm willing to play the game, this is a new side to me. That's just how I view it.
But was that even strategic? Like, was that
maybe there is a method to the madness, like he's showing that he's vulnerable.
What is it? Look at me, I'm naked, I'm vulnerable, guys.
I just want to acknowledge Mackenzie in the chat has said that this was her favorite episode for Chappies so far. And I get what you're saying, but there's a fine line between madness and genius sometimes. Like I've kind of compared him to like a Tony Vlachos, a Luke Toki type of character a few times. I think he's that kind of character where if he's someone that thinks strategically about the game and he does something, people might not take him as serious because he's got all of these antics. It can lower your threat level, and there is an element, and obviously it's different from season to season. Like in your season, PK, something like that might not have flown, and you might have voted him out immediately because he could have been like the Martinez of the season, you know what I mean? But in this season, people are tolerating it a little bit more. They're laughing and having fun with it. So I do think that we're seeing enough positive reactions to it in a sense that it could be good for him. And I do wonder if Chappies is going to try and work his way into this tribe here, because I feel like he knows he's not going to be able to work with Vuna. That's why I'm fearful of Tyson and Kiran's position in the game moving forward. I think they're two very capable players. I'm just worried that they don't have the numbers with them to continue on with the game. So like Tyson, I would like to see him work with Renier immediately at the merge again, try and get someone in the higher alliance to work with him where he can get a couple of votes in, build some numbers around him and go there. But I don't know if old Vuna is going to stick together, because they just, to me, look like a tribe that is fractured and is never going to fully get back together because of the rift. And I think Warda is that rift. I don't think Warda wants to work with Chappies, and I don't think Warda wants to work with Santoni. She could cost Tyson and Kiran the game at this stage. And we see a lot of this happening here, especially Riley, when they start talking about strategy. And Warda immediately here wants to target Santoni because Santoni is connected to Chappies. But like I've said, I don't understand what the issue is around Chappies, because he doesn't have any social capital or control in the game at the moment, but she feels like she needs to take Santoni out. What did you think of Kiran and Tyson's play at this stage, and how they turned around the whole vote on Santoni and moved it rather to Dino in this position? And do you think that was the right move for them?
Well, I think it was actually a bad move. And the reason being, Vuna is very fractured at this stage. I mean, Chappies and Santoni on one side, and then you have, Wider obviously on the other. And Nesu being that someone that can bring them together. But I think ultimately, you look at Zamba on the other tribe, Amy, Renier, Nicole, Sean, and Marisha coming together as a unit. I think it almost would have been better to stay with Dino and show him that they trust them, and use that as sort of currency to then get in bed at the merge with Renier's alliance, and maybe that assures them, a place further down the line in the game. Because I do think that playing with people like Santoni and Chappies who don't have that social currency, I think it might be a little bit of a misstep for them when it comes to the merge, in that they'll be in the minority compared to that bigger Zumba alliance. So I understand why they obviously, tried to get rid of the friction and got rid of Dino to make sure that Vuna stayed in the majority on that tribe. But with the merge coming up so quickly, and knowing that Vuna is fractured, I think it was almost a misstep in that sense, in that, there's this greater alliance that you could build yourself into and try and gain trust now, as opposed to wait until the merge and then scramble for numbers then.
How well did that work out for Jack Berger in Survivor Island of Secrets, trying to ingratiate him with the bigger alliance? He ended up getting thrown to the side and he was voted out. It was the big problem that I had with Survivor Island of Secrets, is that no one tried to build a real good counter alliance to take the bigger alliance out. So in my opinion, I love Survivor, and that's why different people have got different opinions about it, and we see an edited show. But I think it was a good move for them. I think they need to keep Vuna strong. My fear is that I don't know if Warda is going to do it. I'm hoping that they can turn Warda around and get her to understand that they need Chappies and Santoni moving forward for Vuna to have a chance. Because I do think, and PK and Tikao, I'd love to hear your opinion about it, but I do think that the original Zumba with Renier, Amy, the girls, and Sean and Anella, I think those guys are going to be unbreakable, get to the merge. So I feel like this was the right move for Tyson and Kiran. And I actually credit Tyson for this. Kiran wanted to stop Tyson, but Tyson was, no, we need to cut this person. The numbers are going to go against us. It's going to be 3-3 in the next vote with Anella coming back. That's too much of a risk for us moving into the next phase. And I think that they made the right move. PK, what's your opinion about this move from Tyson and Kiran at this stage in the game?
No, I definitely feel like it's the right move. My only concern going to merge is that Warda seems like one of those overly emotional players. It seems like she's really holding a grudge against Santoni and Anela. And I think that could really be a liability in Tyson and Kieran's game. If she puts her emotions above, strategy and the numbers, I feel like she could really be, pulling them back, and they might feel the need to cut her. or she might become volatile or and do something drastic that might pull them down.
And I also think that Dina was the right vote because as much as there is perhaps a potential greater alliance in the future, it's very difficult to play with someone that's paranoid all the time. You know, someone that even if you move together in towards merge, that you don't really know where they stand. It's very, very difficult to play with them. So I definitely think for their own peace of mind and strategic wise, I believe that Dina was the right vote at that time.
And it's unfortunate because Dino's such a super fan, man. I really wish he had found his position in the game and he found exactly where he belongs and who wants to play with. Just his anxiety, I feel like it really got into the way of his game. And that's really, really unfortunate.
Yes, and Dino is the first to admit to it. I'm going to plug it again here. The exit interview with Dino, there's a lot that happened on the island that we did not see. Certain people knowing who he was when he got onto the island, which put a media target on his back when he got onto the island, because some people may know this, some people may not know this. Dino played an online Survivor Org game, one of the biggest games in South Africa, online Survivor Org, and he won the first season of that. And there were people who knew that he was a good player when he came into the season. So put a target on him. And there was other people that he knew from outside of the game that played the game. So he talks about some of these dynamics. He talks about why he tried to get Paul to help him in that first episode. So it's really worth getting into it. And I've spoken to Dino at length. Great guy. He kind of made my eyes open to the fact that if I was able to play the game, as big of a fan as I am, and Riley, as big as a fan as like you are, you know, the game is getting harder every year because there's more and more fans that play the game. There's more and more people who know how to play the game. It's a lot more difficult. And PK, you would have probably seen this from your season to this season, how much the game has evolved and how much faster the game is now and how many more people there is that have got their own plans and want to play a crazy game. Because in your season, you were one of the, I think you could do well in a season like this because you were a player who wanted to bring the chaos and mix things up. And I think a season like this with this many twists deserves a player like that to be in it. But you played a couple of seasons earlier and the game has moved on since then, right?
Yeah, the game has definitely evolved. We're living in exciting times right now. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's coming. And I feel like there are more and more super fans that are now being given an opportunity to take part in the game. And I don't know, moving on, what's going to happen. I feel like there's going to be a season where it's just a whole lot of super fans there, and it's going to be, LB, LaRue, and the producers are going to come up with more interesting twists. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to see what happens there.
That's the beauty of Survivor. I believe that it's just surrendering to stuff that is outside of your control. As much as you're a super fan and you might have all of these strategies beforehand, and then you get casted, and then on the first day they tell you, hi, there's Immunity Island, something that you couldn't pre-plan or it wasn't in your strategy prior to entering. And sometimes I believe that you should just surrender to the game and surrender to your strategy as far as you have planned. And yeah, that's the beauty of Immunity Island that we see. It has this beautiful marriage of your own personal game, choosing not to have a vote, and being a team player and perhaps not playing, and then going towards your tactical side and sticking to your alliance. So yeah.
And I can definitely agree with that. Before you go into Survivor, they ask you, you have this panel interview, and there's some of the questions that, what's your strategy going to be? And, I feel like going into the new episodes of Survivor and the current Survivor, it's like you will get there, and it's the best thing you could do for yourself is to not have a strategy at all. Just get there and feel the game out and see what happens, see what the twists are. I don't think the way Survivor is right now is you shouldn't come in there with a strategy. Get in there and get a strategy there.
Or maybe you should have an adaptable strategy, because sometimes an adaptable strategy, because you can't also go into the game, like a headless chicken running and just taking every day as it comes. But yeah, maybe your strategy should adapt to the situation that's given,
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100% agree with you guys.
Survivor is, people like Tom, he might win one season, and Rob Bentele, his strategy might win another season. But if you put Rob Bentele in a later season, having not played before, that strategy might not work. It always depends on, what twists are there, what the cast is as well. And I think that was one of Dino's biggest downfalls, was he couldn't get in with any of the cast. And some of them did know him from outside of the game. So there's so many different variables that you're right, Takia, in saying that there's no one strategy you can have in the game. You've always got to be adaptable and, think about all these different variables that can ultimately change your game. I mean, on Island of the Idols in the US recently, we saw one player, pick an advantage out of the sky and it sent them home. There's so many different variables in the game that, you can't control the game at all. You just got to, you got to be adaptable. You got to step back and play with the game, not try and play the game.
Exactly.
Now, I did want to touch on something here before we went into the tribal council phase. Tyson goes to this new beach and immediately has the whereabouts to go and look for the idol, which obviously was hidden at a pretty much similar spot to what he had in his previous beach. And Santoni finds out that he's got this now. So obviously there's a bit of risk to Tyson because Santoni is aware. And I actually, how they call Dino a flip-flopper, I do agree Dino is a flip-flopper to a degree. But I also think that from having spoken to Dino outside of the game now and having had a little bit of an idea, I don't think Dino actually ever felt in with that bigger Zumba alliance. And I do think that there could have been a potential opportunity missed here to bring Dino into the thing and say, hey, we want you to be with us. Like we'll commit to you since no one else is committing to you. And they could have potentially brought him in. Santoni, I'm very worried about because I think Santoni has proven she's a flip-flopper. She's jumped back and forth between different alliances and she could be a blind spot. So Warda, I'm giving Warda a lot of crap for not putting let bygones be bygones, but she could have a point here and knowing that Santoni is not to be trusted because she's just gone through all of these votes where Santoni has jumped back and forth, and Santoni knowing about this is a danger to Tyson. But I really am impressed by Tyson's hustle to go out there and look for the idol and get it. I always respect players like that don't let things wait. And I was really disappointed by Santoni for not going and doing this. She said she thought Teresa already had the idol. And, Santoni has been getting a lot of credit from the Survivor fandom online, and they've been voting her player of the week after player of the week. We on the podcast haven't given her player of the week yet. We think she's playing a good game. Her jumping back and forth has been impressive. But this is a bad play from her here. Riley, would you agree by her not having done this? Because if you're a fan, and she is a fan, you should have gone and looked.
Yeah, and even if Tyson played his idol at the last tribal council, and Teresa, if you thought she had the idol, she was voted out with it. So one would think it's been rehidden. And Tyson to, have the ingenuity just to search again, maybe it'll be in the same spot, and he comes up with it. I mean, it may be in front of Santoni, but now it's something that they can use as leverage to sort of strengthen that Vuna alliance. But I think from Santoni not to recognize that, there might be a clue that it might be rehidden and sort of be playing 2 steps behind Tyson in this case. It really backfired for her. And ultimately she played her idol that she found at Tribal Council this episode as well, which I think might have been a misplay. She could have saved that for later in the game, knowing that all the votes were directed towards Dino. But ultimately, I mean, now she's, no power, and she's just up to, trying to stick strong with her alliance and seeing that will carry her through.
PK and Takea, I'll let you guys answer this question for Mackenzie. She's saying, what do you guys think about so many switch-ups so early on in the season?
I love it. It's completely chaotic, and that's exactly what we need. And that's what I think we further highlighted with the adaptable strategy. You just never know about the season, and that's why you just should trust your alliance, trust your gut instinct as well. That's what I think that a lot of the players have been doing as well, like Tyson playing that idol, Santoni also playing her idol. So I believe it's just about trusting your gut instinct and further strengthening those alliances that you believe that you have. And perhaps it could also be creating opportunities with those that you haven't touched base on, which Dino was actually excited about the previous season, which unfortunately didn't materialize. But it brings also about opportunities for new alliances as well, which is great.
I don't think it was necessary.
Why?
No, because we already had a switch not so long ago, and there are so many exciting things that are happening here. Like with the whole immunity island, and I just don't think it was necessary. Like, I don't think it took away from the game, but I don't necessarily think it added to the game. I think the game would have been as interesting as it is had they not done that.
No, 100%. I mean, for me, I think the fact that we keep the sort of thing there with the Vuna and Zumba tribe and potentially having a 6-6 go into the merge, I think to have this extra swap was kind of needed for Vuna to find their feet again, original Vuna. I think that's good in that sense, where we might have a more exciting merge because of this, because if they went in very lopsided with more Zamba members than Vuna members, I think Tyson and Kiran and Inesu would have been out in the cold, even if they won the rest of the challenges. And I think all three of them were in real danger in that tribe that they were on. So I think the swap worked out really well for them going into this episode. I do want to touch on something else as well here, Riley. We get a really funny moment at Tribal Council with the moths flying around at the Tribal Council, and Nico saying he sees it as being insects, but Santoni and Kian thinks that it's food. Riley, what did you think of that episode? And I guess after that, I'll let you, PK, sort of give us a little bit of an inclination as to what you had to eat while you were out on the island as well, that maybe other people wouldn't eat in their normal lives. Riley, what did you think of it?
I do like that. I do like the banter that Nico has with the castaways. He seems like such a great host, and my favorite host out of any international hosts. He has so much fun banter with the castaways. And yeah, that moment there, Kihan, thinking it's food, and Nico thinking it's just a nuisance. It's just bug flying in the air. Really funny to see.
PK, so taking it back to your time out there on the island, what did you see as food that other people may have thought, nah, this definitely isn't food? Because I'm sure you guys had it pretty tough. You just mentioned that they're getting a lot more food this season compared to your season.
Man, there was a point when myself and Tony were the last two left on our tribe, and we were on this island, and we went for a number of days without having any form of real food. And we saw insects, like we saw these ants that are walking around, and we had this conversation about how many ants do you think you need to eat in order to be filled? Then we got to merge, and there was this rat that at every single, I think it was like maybe 6 p.m. at around 6 p.m. every evening it goes past, and then we started having this conversation that, guys, do you guys think we should be catching this rat to eat it? Because Kane wants to be eating coming here every single day on the clock. So yeah, man. Ants and rats.
You do what you need to do. I'll never forget the scene of Natalie White and Samoa, little blonde girl catching a rat so that she can go cook it. If you're out on the island and you need to eat, you've got to do. And if you're going to Survivor and you're not willing, to adapt, I was kind of fearful for Inesu being a vegan, going out there playing the game and thinking, what is she going to eat? Because she was already really skinny going into the game. What was she going to eat to actually get through the game? Because there's not much to choose from. But like you said, this season, there has been a lot of rewards. There's been a lot of different things that they've thrown out there, which has kept the game, I guess, interesting from that aspect. People at least had food. I did ask Dino if he actually lost weight out there because they kept winning every single reward challenge. And he said he did lose a bit of weight. So again, I think it was like 8 kilograms or something in the 16 days, which is about 500 grams a day. So it shows you, even if you're getting food, you're still going to lose it because you're not eating like you would in your normal day where you've got morning, afternoon, and lunch. And then if you're someone that likes to train, like I could see PK, you're someone that's fit, you probably eat 6 times a day. So it must be really tough when you get on the island and you're on like 500 calories a day as a diet.
Yeah. Another thing is the stress factor. You're so stressed on the island that I'm sure that contributes to the weight loss as well. You always stressed. You don't know what's going to happen on the next day. You don't know what kind of conversations are happening. Even if you are eating, I don't think you're getting the proper nourishment because so much of it is getting burnt by stress and anxiety. And I think for Dino, it was a lot worse.
Now, Riley, I wanted to touch on, before we look at our draft teams, to see where we're sitting on who's got, between myself and Riley, who's got what players left in the game going into the merge. There is a friendly wager between myself and Riley as well up for grabs. Riley, Santoni played an idol in this round. Talk us through what you think about the strategy of playing the idol here. Would you have played it in the same position?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it wasn't needed, but I think, knowing that, telling Tyson and Kiran that she has the idol, I think it can go either way. You can obviously hold on to that idol for the future, but run the risk of potentially being voted out, and then also play it and know that you didn't. But I think Santoni said when going up to Dino that her sister told her, it's better to play the idol than, not play it. You should always be prepared. I think it'd be more embarrassing to go out like someone like James on Survivor China with 2 idols in your pocket. I think it'd always be embarrassing to do something like that. So if you feel like your name's on the block, I certainly don't blame her for playing the idol there.
No, 100%. I think that if you've got an idol in your pocket, it's better to play it than go home with it in your pocket. That's for sure. So we're looking at our two draft teams here going into this episode. And I do think, Riley, that by losing in this round, your person there, Dino, who was your first pick coming into the draft pick,
Yep.
this is the highest drafted person we've lost here so far this year. You're 3 people down, and I do think that it's going to take a miracle for you to go into the merge here with more players than myself, because I'm pretty convinced we're probably one spot away from actually going into the merge here. But there are still a few players left. So PK and Kiran, we're looking at Riley's team there. You've got Nicole, Kiran, Marisha, Tyson, and Warda. Who would you guys be the highest on? Who do you think has the best potential to go all the way and win this game in Riley's team?
I'm going to choose my boy Tyson.
I'd say Kiran.
Yep. And I agree with you guys. I think that, he's going down here in numbers, but I think that he's got a very strong 2 people still left, and both of them would still form part of the 5 people that I think can win this season. And when you're looking at my tribe there, who do you guys think in my tribe potentially could be the people to look out for that could go all the way and win it?
Eesh, man, you've got some powerful picks over there. You got Anesu.
Very lucky, and I promise I didn't know anything prior to the season starting. My number 2 guy pick was Jason Brookstein going into this, and he was voted out first. So I had no idea, but I'm feeling confident that there's some power hitters still left in this team.
I'd say Anesu.
Okay, I'll say Anesu as well.
So Anesu was my preseason pick to win. If that happens, I can retire happily, and I don't think that I will ever probably be able to do that again and pick that person from the bat. I do think that someone that has continued to impress me is Renier. I personally am impressed by Amy's game. I know some people aren't as high on it. It's quite funny because Riley can attest to this. I'm not normally the person that like the low key, under the snake in the grass type of players. I like the players that are out there playing big moves. And Amy is definitely that type of player. She's playing under the grass, under the radar. But I think that for her to have survived that swap where she was in the minority 3 and she worked with Anella, who also is in my team, who I also think is a dark horse still in this as well. In fact, if I had to pick 3 outside of Ines, it's a tough team to pick from, guys. Let's be honest. There's too many big hitters in this team. But, I do think that if that side of it goes far, Zamba, you got Renier, you've got Anella, and you've got Amy potentially that could do some damage still as well. I just haven't been getting the feel from Nicole or Marisha that they're going to go very far, or if they go very far, that they're going to win the season. And that's just based off the edit that I've seen so far. So we can also have a quick look at Inside Survivor to see who was the top picked player last week on Inside Survivor, so we can predict who we think is going to be the top placed player this week. I think we should stop looking at Inside Survivor from this point, Riley, because they had Sean as number 1. Do you think Sean got all of his workmates to phone in and
so bizarre? So bizarre, such a bizarre choice. I did not see him being the player of the week at all. I think last week we settled on. Did we settle on Amy last week? I think. So to see Sean make his way up, especially after his explosive tribal council as well, I'm not too sure about that. So there must be something in the Kool-Aid there. But yeah, Sean, a very interesting pick.
Yeah, 100%. So how this last section of the show works is we're going to all nominate who we think was the player of the week. It could be a draw. If it is a draw and we all 4 choose someone else, then there's 4 players of the week. We had one week where we had a draw between 3 players. I believe it was Santoni, Amy, and Carla that week. The 3 Charlie's Angels winning it out on the top. But we're going to go over to Takia and PK. You guys can start it off. Takia, who do you think was your player of the week? Would it be Kiran?
Actually not. I would say that last week's episode, my player of the week would be Tyson, because he found an immunity idol, and also I'm for his vote with Dino. I think it was very strategical, and yeah, for me that was my player of the week.
Yeah, same on my side. I think Tyson is playing a very, very good game right now, and it's unexpected. I don't expect him to play such a good game, and for him to have so much luck on his side, going on with Kiran, and actually sticking by Kiran and having these conversations that he's having with Kiran, and actually looking for the idol and finding it right after burning an idol, and also taking Dino out at the time they took him out. Yeah, Tyson is doing some good moves. He'll be my player of the week.
Now, Riley, I'm very interested to know who your player of the week is, because you did sort of allude to the fact that you didn't think that this was the right move for Tyson at this point. Have you changed your mind in the middle of this podcast, as I sort of made a case and PK and Takia made a case for why this potentially could have been a good move? Or are you going to go with someone completely different for your player of the week?
Dino was my number one pick, so I'm still a little bit salty. I'm not too sure about that Tyson move, but I'm going to go for Renier as my pick of the week. I think he might have won the challenge there, so we didn't see too much of him, but he's building a really strong alliance at this point, and he's flying under the radar. Amy came running straight back to him. He's got Marusha, Nicole, and Sean in his pocket, and it looks like he's also got a good relationship with Smash as well. So I think Renier for me is someone that he had a lot of upside in this episode.
Now, for me, I did come into this podcast thinking, I really want to give Renier some credit, because I haven't been giving him enough credit throughout the whole season. I haven't really been noticing I knew he was playing a good game, but I'm starting to feel like he's playing a superb game. I thought he was going to get caught out by now, and he's not getting caught out. And I do want to give him credit for that, but I'm going to keep it similar to how we've been keeping it on the show throughout the whole season so far. And I'm going to make the player of the week someone that was actually involved in the direction of where the vote went. And Renier wasn't involved in that, as someone that was safe this specific time around. And coming into it, I was already pretty convinced that I knew who that person was going to be, and it is Tyson. I'm going to give it to Tyson. Tyson was someone, when we did our preseason picks, you would have probably noticed he was kind of on the bottom side of Riley's team that he picked. And a lot of that was because we knew that Tyson wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the show. He's someone that wanted to get involved in production, wanted to know more about how the TV show is made. And I thought he got into this game for the wrong reasons, and he was going to get overwhelmed by how many different things are going to get thrown at him. But I've been impressed. He's shown that adaptability that you guys spoke about earlier, that a Survivor player needs. Someone that goes out there and finds the idols, works his way into these little alliances with Kiran, for Warda, and he's someone that has driven the vote here. And I do think his move to go against Dino was the right move, because I do think he needs to find a way to get Vuna to come back together. I don't know if he can make it happen. I'm still very worried for Tyson long term. I think he's a potential winner pick, but I just don't see it moving forward unless he can get people from Zumba to move over to his side. I think he's going to find it tough, and that tribe is very fractured. I think Santoni and Chappies could be his downfall if they get to the merge, potentially, by not wanting to work with him. I hope I'm wrong, because I've been enjoying what I've seen from Tyson. He's a big character, and I just think he's a great guy. I didn't think I was going to like him as much as I did. Based off the video that I saw in the beginning, I just thought this guy wasn't going to know what he was going to get himself into. So I think overall, Tyson is the person that we're going to go with for this week, and well-deserved from Tyson. It's been great having everybody on the show listening to this. We've had a great live crowd who's asked a lot of questions. If you're not subscribed to the show yet, hit the subscription button. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, and when we hit that, we've got another special event coming up, which is yet to be decided, but there's a few things floating about within the Reality Pop TV crew in regards to what that potentially could be. Also, I wanted to thank PK and your lovely lady for coming on the show today and talking about Survivor with us. PK, what's happening next for you guys? Is there anything specific that you guys want to make people aware of, where they can follow you, any projects you've got going on? I'll obviously make sure I've got all your Instagram and Twitter and all those things linked in the bottom here as well, below, as soon as the episode is done.
Yeah, no, there's no projects that we're advertising, but you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Hilton_PK. And
yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well, Takia_Goodman. Yeah, that's all that we have in store, pretty much. We just glue to our TVs on Thursday nights, analyzing
That's awesome.
Watching the lovely game.
That's awesome. You guys are couple goals, being able to watch the game together and, talk about it. Really love seeing it. And it's been so much fun to have you guys on the show as well. And hopefully we get you guys to join in sometime in the near future. If you watch Australian Survivor, we're going to be talking about that very soon on this podcast as well. The premiere is starting in about 2 weeks, about a week and a half's time, maybe a week's time now. It's gone by so quickly. And this season is called Brains versus Brawns. And I did want to ask this question. I nearly forgot to ask. Takia, would you ever be open to doing a blood versus water season with PK if the producers came calling in the future?
I definitely would, and I've always said I'm very cutthroat.
It's funny that you ask. We talk about it all the time.
We talk about it all the time.
What would happen if we had to be in the season together?
I'd have to vote him out. I need to be. He'll distract me. I've already told him no hard feelings. But he would definitely be my first vote so that I can focus and definitely be in the game. Because I'd be too emotional and too lovey-dovey, and that's not what the game's about. Unfortunately.
That would be
Either-
one of the top 5 moves in Survivor South Africa if you voted PK out for sure.
It'll really be an awkward home situation if that had to happen.
100%. Riley, I want to go over to you. Anything happening on the Snuff channel? What's next on Snuffed on YouTube?
Yeah, so I've got Todd Herzog's Journey to the Soul Survivor coming out tomorrow, and we'll also be doing a collaboration with you, Chris, and discussing some of the greatest international survivors of all time. Some of those being from Survivor South Africa, so that's something to look out over on my channel, Snuffed, later this week.
Great. Well, guys, it's been great having you on board as always. We'll be back next week to talk about Survivor South Africa. Episode 8, I believe, is the next one. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I've been doing a lot of podcasts in the last couple of hours. And we'll have a very special guest. We'll have Dirty Harry from Australian Survivor as our guest for the next episode. So very excited to hear what Dirty Harry has got to say about this season. And if you don't know who he is, go and watch Australian Survivor, one of the all-time great players of Australian Survivor. It's been great to talk to you guys. Next time, bye.